This is WorkSpan TV. I'm Ryan Johnson from World at Work, talking with Laura Sejan from Towers Watson today about optimizing your total rewards. Now, Laura, let me just ask you, this segment's going to be based on some research that we jointly conducted with Towers, and there's a couple of interesting surveys that we're comparing. The first question I have is, we did a sample of total rewards professionals through World at Work and Towers, and then we also had a sample of U.S. adult workers, employees. There was some interesting disconnects between those two. Why don't we just spend a minute talking about that?
The two pieces of research are the Talent Management and Rewards Study, which gathers the employer view as represented by total rewards professionals, and then the Global Workforce Study, which captures the corresponding employee view. We collected input literally from 32,000 employees around the world and several thousand of them in the US. The thing that was interesting for us is we continue to see some ongoing disconnects between what employers think matter to employees and what employees are telling us matter when it comes to things like drivers of attraction, so reasons why I might choose to join an organization as an employee, and drivers of retention, reasons why I might choose to leave a company.
So one of the interesting first findings that I saw was about retirement. And there's actually there's a notion in here that employees would make all kinds of sacrifices in their current total rewards in order to have additional retirement security. I don't know if that's just a function of what we've seen in the economy in the last few years, and or if that's an opportunity for total rewards professionals to think about how they're serving up total rewards to their employee base.
I think it's both. We do the Global Workforce Study every other year, and the last time we did it, 2010, we thought, well, gee, these findings coming from employees in terms of preferences around things that basically constitute security, job security, healthcare benefits, retirement benefits. We thought, well, gee, this is probably related to being not so far out of the recession in the US. So it was interesting when we did the research again in 2012 to see that, if anything, those attitudes among employees have heightened. And as you mentioned, there's a willingness to trade off $1 of almost anything for an extra $1 of guaranteed, I think the key word is guaranteed here, retirement income. Whether it's 100% based on the financial crisis and the ensuing recession, or some of the volatility in the broader economic environment, or just the overall cost management imperative that a lot of companies have been under, employees are seeing that and they're feeling it. So much more than ever in the past, we're seeing this sort of security orientation being front of mind for employees.
That finding leads to a really interesting process that you've talked about, which is optimizing your total rewards offering. And it gets into things like not just surveying your employee base about what rewards they prefer, but then doing some trade-offs. And maybe you could talk about that.
I guess a lot of companies think, oh, gee, total rewards, it's such a big topic, and how do I get it right? And what we've tried to do is demystify that a bit by saying, you can do some basic diagnostics across your organization, and based on the results of those diagnostics, as a company, you'll be in a place to really have a better, more strategic, more effective set of total rewards programs. So how do I do it? It's important in our view to get the lay of the land. So what's the current state of total rewards design and delivery in your organization? And then through a number of these techniques that I'll talk about in a minute, what's our desired future state? So what do I want the complexion of total rewards to look like in my company on a go-forward basis? And based on the results of these different analytics that are fairly readily completed, you can say, okay, here's my desired future state, here's where I am today, what's the gap? So traditional gap analysis. And then the results of that gap analysis will help companies define the roadmap. And depending on the size of the gap or the magnitude of the gap, we can get where we want to go in a year. 2 years is probably more common. 3 years is not uncommon. The diagnostics include everything from taking a look at where you want to go as a business. So what are your short-term and long-term operating plans? What's your overall business strategy? Does the way I have my total rewards program designed align with that business strategy? So are my total rewards programs designed in such a way that they will help guide us to achieving those overall strategic objectives? So there's a business view. There's a leadership view. So going out, talking with senior leadership, talking with mid-level managers, where are we trying to take this company? And that's everything from strategy to desired culture. What's the leadership view of what kind of employer they want to be? Do we want to be an employer who has a heavier emphasis on benefits so my employees feel they have that financial security? Or is it a different kind of environment and maybe it's more about cash, annual cash, incentive pay, and so forth? You need to do a view of employees. So just like you're gauging the view of leaders, you need to gauge the view of employees. There's a competitive diagnostic that we encourage companies to complete. So how competitive, just baseline competitiveness, how competitive are your total rewards programs? That notion's been around for a long time, but what we find is a lot of companies will still take a look at the competitiveness of their cash compensation or the total of compensation programs, in a silo. And then shift gears and the benefits team will take a look at the competitiveness of healthcare and retirement benefits, and we'll take a stab at quantifying the value of other benefits like vacation and holidays and disability. And so a lot of companies haven't taken the opportunity to put those pieces together in terms of a true assessment of total rewards competitiveness. And what we find is when companies do, there's usually an opportunity to make some adjustments. So that's just a couple of the different diagnostics that are done. But when you complete those, you have, we think, a very holistic view of current state, desired future state, and then you can go from there.
And of course, you can overlay the segmentation of your employee base. You can do all kinds of things along those lines, can't you?
Yes, absolutely, and we recommend it. So on the employee view, one of the diagnostics, I think a lot of companies have realized in the past couple of years that it's increasingly difficult, probably untenable financially, to be all things to all employees. So we encourage companies to think about what are the pivotal segments across their workforce. Is it critical skill employees, those employee groups, job functions, job families that have the skills that really drive the business forward from a domain expertise perspective? Is it high potential employees, it's top performing employees, or whatever segment of the workforce might be deemed to be critical? And then in addition to understanding the drivers of attraction and retention and engagement, or frankly, things like drivers of higher levels of productivity, drivers of higher levels of customer satisfaction across your total workforce, you can look at the drivers in those specific segments and then tailor the design and delivery of your rewards programs to meet the needs of those key employee groups.
Laura Siegen from Towers Watson, terrific overview of optimizing your total rewards. For WorkSpan TV, I'm Ryan Johnson.